I like the poetry and the humility of I'm just a series of colors in someone else's painting. That was a good line. That said, you've talked about improvisation. You said that it's all about the ability to do it again and again and again, and yet never make it the same. And you also just said that you're trying to stay true to the text. So where's the room for the improvisation that it's never the same?
Well, there's two slightly different contexts, I think. One is in the rehearsal room. Improvisation could be a wonderful device. I mean, Sam Mendes, for example, will start. He'll start a scene, and he does this wonderful thing. He brings rugs and he brings chairs and sofas in, and he says, "Well, let's put two chairs here and here. You guys, let's start in these chairs far apart from each other. Let's see what happens with the scene if you're that far apart." And so we'll do the scene that way. And then he goes, "Okay, let's bring a rug in, and let's bring these chairs much closer, and let's see what happens if the space between you is." And so then you try it that way. And then, it's a little harder in Shakespeare to improv. But in any situation where you want to try and see where could a scene go? Where would the scene go if I didn't make that choice? Where would the scene go if I made this choice? Where would the scene go if I didn't say that or I said something else? So that's how improv can be a valuable process to learn about limits and boundaries, and what's going on with a character that somehow you discover in trying something that isn't on the page. Then there's the different thing, which is the trying to make it fresh and trying to make it new, and that is really a reference to theater. I'll put it to you this way. Anybody loves sports, right? So you go and you watch on a pitch, you watch on a tennis game, you watch basketball, you watch football. Yeah, the rules are the same, but it's a different game every time you're out on that court or on that field. It's no different in theater. Yes, it's the same lines, maybe even blocking is similar. But what's different is attack, intention, how you are growing in a role and watching your fellow actors grow in theirs, and how every night it's a new audience and they're reacting differently. And you literally, where you can go from week 1 of performances in a play to week 12 is extraordinary. And the difference between theater and film is that no matter how good someone might think you are in a movie, you'll never be any better. It's frozen. Whereas I can be better tomorrow night than I was tonight. I can be better in a week than I was tonight. It is a living, breathing, shifting, changing, growing thing every single day.
But also in theater, there's no safety net. If you fuck it up, everybody gets to see you do that.
And if you start giggling on stage, everyone gets to see you do that too, which I am very guilty of.
I mean, there is something of a seduction of an audience in theater even more intense than there is when you're talking about film. I got a chance to watch the documentary Now in the Wings on a World Stage, which is behind the scenes of, you mentioned you teaming up with Sam Mendes in 2011 to stage Richard III, a play by William Shakespeare. I was also surprised to learn you haven't really done much Shakespeare, or at least you said that in the in the movie. But there's a lot of interesting behind the scenes stuff there. First of all, the camaraderie of everybody, how like the bond theater creates, especially when you're traveling. But another interesting thing you mentioned with the chairs of Sam Mendes trying different stuff, it seemed like everybody was really open to trying stuff, embarrassing themselves, taking risks, all of that. I suppose that's part of acting in general, but theater especially. Just take risks. It's okay to embarrass the shit out of yourself, including the director.
And it's also because you become a family. It's unlike a movie where, I might have a scene with so-and-so on this day and then another scene with them in a week and a half. And then that's the only scenes we have in the whole movie together. Every single day when you show up in the rehearsal room, it's the whole company. You're all up for it every day. You're learning, you're growing, you're trying. And there is an incredible trust that happens. And I was, of course, fortunate that some of the things I learned and observed about being a part of that family, being included in that family, and being a part of creating that family, I was able to observe from people like Jack Lemmon, who led many companies that I was fortunate to work in and be a part of.
There's also a sad moment where at the end, everybody is really sad to say goodbye because you do form a family and then it's over. I guess somebody said that that's just part of theater. It's like, I mean, there's a kind of assumed goodbye and that this is it.
Yeah, and also there are some times when, like 6 months later, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go, that's how to play that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I just finally figured it out.
So maybe you could speak a little bit more to that. What's the difference between film acting and live theater acting?
I don't really think there is any. I think there's just, you eventually learn about yourself on film. When I first did like my first episode of The Equalizer, it's horrible. It's just so bad. But I didn't know about myself. So slowly you begin to learn about yourself. But I think good acting is good acting. And I think that, if a camera's right here, you know that your front row is also your back row. You just don't have to do so much. There is in theater a particular kind of energy, almost like an athlete, that you have to have vocally to be able to get up 7 performances a week and never lose your voice and always be there and always be alive and always be doing the best work you can, that you just don't require in film. You don't have to have the same, it just doesn't require the same kind of stamina that doing a play does.
It just feels like also in theater, you have to become the character more intensely because you can't take a break. You can't take a bathroom break. You're like on stage. This is you.
Yeah, but you have no idea what's going on stage with the actors. I mean, I have literally laughed through speeches that I had to give because my fellow actors were putting carrots up their nose or broccoli in their ears or doing whatever they were doing to make me laugh.
So they're just having fun.
They're having the time of their life. And by the way, Judi Dench is the worst giggler of all.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to bring the curtain down on her and Maggie Smith because they were laughing so hard they could not continue the play.
So even when you're doing like a dramatic monologue, they're still fucking with you.
There's stuff.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. That's good to know. You also said, interesting line, that improvisation helps you learn about the character. Can you explain that? So like through maybe playing with the different ways of saying the words or the different ways to bring the words to life, you get to learn about yourself, about the character you're playing.
It can be helpful. But improv is, I'm such a big believer in the writing and in serving the writing and doing the words the writer wrote. That improv for me, unless you're just doing like comedy and, I love improv and in comedy, it's brilliant. So much fun to watch people just come up with something right there. But that's where you're looking for laughs and you're specifically in a little scene that's being created. But I think improv has had value. But I have not experienced it as much in doing plays as I have sometimes in doing film, where you'll start off rehearsing, and a director may say, "Let's just go off book and see what happens." And I've had moments in film where someone went off book, and it was terrifying. There was a scene I had in Glengarry Glen Ross where the character I play has fucked something up. It's just screwed something up, and Pacino is livid. And so we had this scene where Al is walking like this, and the camera is moving with him, and he is shooing me a new asshole. And in the middle of the take, Al starts talking about me. "Oh, Kevin, you don't think we know how you got this job? You don't think we know whose dick you've been sucking on to get this part in this movie?" And I'm literally like, I don't know what the hell is happening, but I'm reacting. We got to the end of that take. Al walked up to me and he went, "Oh, that was so good. Oh my God, that was so good. Just so you know, the sound, I asked them not to record. So you have no dialogue. So it's just me. Oh, that was so good. You look like a car wreck."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." And it was actually an incredibly generous thing that he gave me so that I would react.
Oh, wow. Did they use that shot? Because
That's
you
the
weren't in
take.
shot.
It was my close-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's the take.
That was an intense interaction. I mean, what was it like, if we can just linger on that, just that intense scene with Al Pacino?
Well, he's the reason I got the movie. A lot of people might think because Jack was in the film that he had something to do with it. But actually, I was doing a play called Lost in Yonkers on Broadway. And we had the same dresser who worked with him, a girl named Laura. It was wonderful. Laura Beatty. And she told Al that he should come and see this play because she wanted to see me in this play. I was playing this gangster. It was fun part. So I didn't know Pacino came on some night and saw this play. And then like 3 days later, I got a call to come in and audition for this Glengarry Glen Ross, which of course I knew as a play, David Mamet's play. And then I auditioned. Jamie Foley was the director, who would eventually direct a bunch of House of Cards. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And I got the part. Well, I didn't quite get the part. They were going to bring together the actors that they thought they were going to give the parts to on a Saturday at Al's office. And they asked me if I would come and do a read through. And I said, "Who's going to be there?" And they said, "Well, so-and-so and so-and-so and so. And then Jack Lemmon is flying in." And I said, "Don't tell Mr. Lemmon that I'm doing the read through. Is that possible?" And they were like, "Sure." So I'll never forget this. Jack was sitting in a chair in Pacino's office doing the New York Times crossword puzzle as he did every day. Like this. And I walked in the door and he went, "Oh, Jesus Christ. Is it possible you could get a job without me? Jesus Christ. I'm so tired of holding up your end of it. Oh my God, Jesus." So I got the job because of Pacino. And it, it was really one of the first major roles that I ever had in a film. And, to be working with that group.
Yeah, that's like one of the greatest ensemble casts ever. We got Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, Alan Arkin, Ed Harris, you, Jonathan Pryce.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible. And I have to say, I mean, maybe you can comment. You've talked about how much of a mentor and a friend Jack Lemmon has been. That's one of his greatest performances ever.
Ever.
You have a scene at the end of the movie with him that was really powerful, like firing on all cylinders. You're playing disdain to perfection, and he's playing desperation to perfection. What a scene. What was that like? Just like at the top of your game, the two of you.
Well, by that time, we had done Long Day's Journey to Night in the theater. We'd done a mini series called The Murder of Mary Fagan on NBC. We'd done a film called Dad that Gary David Goldberg directed with Ted Danson. So this was the fourth time we were working together, and we knew each other. He become my father figure. And I don't know if you know that I originally met Jack Lemmon when I was very, very young. He was doing a production at the Mark Taper Forum of a Sean O'Casey play called Juno and the Paycock with Walter Matthau and Maureen Stapleton. And on a Saturday in December of 1974, my junior high school drama class went to a workshop. It was called How to Audition. And we did this workshop. Many schools in Southern California were part of this Drama Teachers Association. So we got these incredible experiences of being able to go see professional productions and be involved in these workshops or festivals. So I had to get up and do a monologue in front of Mr. Lemmon when I was 13 years old. And he walked up to me at the end of that, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "That was just terrific." He said, "No, everything I've been talking about, you just did. Yeah, what's your name?" I said, "Kevin." He said, "Well, let me tell you something. When you get finished with high school, as I'm sure you're going to go on and do theater, you should go to New York and you should study to be an actor because this is what you're meant to do with your life." And he was like an idol. And 12 years later, I read in the New York Times that he was coming to Broadway to do this production of A Long Day's Journey Into Night a year and some months after I read this article. And I was like, I'm going to play Jamie in that production. And I then, with a lot of opposition, because the cast and director didn't want to see me, they said that the director, Jonathan Miller, wanted movie actors to play the two sons. And ultimately, I found out that Jonathan Miller, the director, was coming to New York to do a series of lectures at Alice Tully Hall. And I went to try to figure out how I could maybe meet him. And I was sitting in that theater listening to this incredible lecture he was doing. And sitting next to me was an elderly woman. I mean, elderly, 80-something, and she was asleep. But sticking out of her handbag, which was on the floor, was a invitation to a cocktail reception in honor of Dr. Jonathan Miller. And so I thought, she's tired. She's probably going to go home. So I took that and walked into this cocktail reception and ultimately went over to Dr. Miller, who was incredibly kind, and said, "Sit down. I'm always very curious what brings young people to my lectures." And I said to him, "Eugene O'Neill brought me here." And he was like, "What? I've always wanted to meet him. Where is he?" And I told him that I'd been trying for 7 months to get an audition for A Long Day's Journey, and that his American cast directors were telling my agents that he wanted big American movie stars. And at that moment, he turned and he saw one of those casting directors who was there that night. Because I knew he was going to be in New York starting auditions that week. And she was staring daggers at me. And he just got it. And he said, "Someone have a pen." And he took the little paper and started writing. He said, "Listen, Kevin, there are many situations in which casting directors have a lot of say and a lot of power and a lot of leverage. And then there are other situations where they just take directors' messages. And on this one, they're taking my messages. This is where I'm staying. Make sure you people get to me. We start auditions on Thursday." And on Thursday, I had an opportunity to come in and audition for this play that I've been working on and preparing. And at the end of it, I did 4 scenes. At the end of it, he said to me that unless someone else came in and blew him against the wall like I had just done, as far as he was concerned, I pretty much had the part, but I couldn't tell my agents that yet because I had to come back and read with Mr. Lemmon. And so 3 months later, in August of 1985, I found myself in a room with Jack Lemmon again at 890 Broadway, which is where they rehearse a lot of the Broadway plays. And we did 4 scenes together, and I was toppling over him. I was pushing him. I was relentless. And I'll never forget at the end of that, Lemmon came over to me. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "That was your touch of terrific. I never thought we'd find the rotten kid, but he's it. Jesus Christ, what the hell was that?" And I ended up spending the next year of my life with that man.
So it turns out he was right.
Yeah.
This world works in mysterious ways. It also speaks to the fact of the power of somebody you look up to giving words of encouragement, because those can just reverberate through your whole life and just like make the path clear.
We used to joke that if every contract came with a Jack Lemmon clause, it would be a more beautiful world.
Beautifully said. Jack Lemmon is one of the greatest actors ever. What do you think makes him so damn good?
Wow. I think he truly set out in his life to accomplish what his father said to him on his deathbed. His father was dying. His father was, by the way, called the Donut King in Boston. And not in the entertainment business at all. He was literally owned a donut company. And when he was passing away, Jack said, the last thing my father said to me was, go out there and spread a little sunshine. And I truly think that's what Jack loved to do. I remember this, and I don't know if this is will answer your question, but I think it's revealing about what he's able to do and what he was able to do and how that ultimately influenced what I was able to do. Sam Mendes had never directed a film before American Beauty. And so what he did was he took the best elements of theater and applied them to the process. So we rehearsed it like a play in a soundstage where everything was laid out like it would be in a play, and this couch will be here. And he'd sent me a couple of tapes. He'd sent me 2 cassette tapes, one that he'd like to call pre-Lester, before he begins to move in a new direction, and then post-Lester. And they just were different songs. And then he said to me one day, and I always thought this was brilliant of Sam to use Lemmon, knowing what Lemmon meant to me. He said, when was the last time you watched The Apartment? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I love that movie so much. He goes, I want you to watch it again, and then let's talk. So I went and I watched the movie again. And we sat down, and Sam said, what Lemmon does in that film is incredible, because there is never a moment in the movie where we see him change. He just evolves. And he becomes the man he becomes because of the experiences that he has through the course of the film. But there's this remarkable consistency in who he becomes. And that's what I need you to do as Lester.